This video will show SensoPart's VISOR in repeat mode with a code reader. We've got Hercules set up here on port 2006. We'll connect, and down here we're on 2005. We can connect, and here you see TRG is the command we can send by clicking this, send, and you get the echo up here, TRGP, P just meaning pass and acknowledgement of the trigger request. Down here you actually see the data. This is the data sent from the camera. We read this code, and you can see it's decoded as SensoPart. And the string length is actually 9. In our payload configuration, we have a minimum length of 25. That's why you see a total of 25 characters, because the end was padded with ASCII space. Okay, let's clear these. We'll reset the VISOR counters. I'll clear both of my Hercules windows. I'm displaying the live image of the code we're trying to read. And in the upper right corner, we've got Hercules we're going to use to send the TRG trigger command. And below that, we've got Hercules that's going to display all data received from the VISOR. Okay, we're covering up the code, and you'll see the light flash a number of times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll remove it after 8, and then you see the data come through. SensoPart came through one time. Okay, so to summarize, we had one trigger from Hercules, and it flashed 8 times, as you saw. When I removed the sticky note, then it could read this code, and it sent this data one time. I can stop sensor and go offline, and you can see I can look at the previous 35 images. Since these all eventually passed, it just re-triggered itself many times. It didn't save any of the interim images. Okay, let's check out this configuration so we can see the detector is just a data code reader set to ECC 200, and we might have had to click this teach to help set these other parameters to an optimum value. The key to repeat mode here is under the job settings under this cycle time tab. This default of 3 seconds was set to the maximum of 10 seconds. We allowed a maximum of 1 second per image, and we set the minimum processing time of every image to 999. So what this means is each flash will happen only once per second. Here's the key, repeat mode. This is by default 1. We set this to 10. By putting the minimum processing artificially high, we can see it's only going to trigger and flash once per second. And then it's going to keep trying to re-trigger itself. If it fails after 1 second, it will re-trigger itself, and all detectors are complete as defined here. Overall job result by default is all detectors passed. That's how we ended up re-triggering 8 times, as you saw in the video. In the real world, if we were reading a code on a box on a conveyor line, this might be 5 seconds for one box, and the maximum time per image. If we look down here in the bottom, we can see in real time what the overall cycle time was, and we can use that, basically double that value, to set this to something like 600. And minimum processing time, we probably keep that on auto for real life, and set this repeat mode so that it'll keep re-triggering enough within that 5 seconds. The other point, it doesn't matter how you trigger the camera. If you trigger it over Ethernet, if you trigger it over Ethernet IP, if you trigger it on the white wire, which is the trigger input, if you trigger it here from SensoConfig, each of those trigger requests to the camera are all the same. So, to summarize again, for each one trigger request under job, cycle time, we can have the camera re-trigger itself a number of times for each trigger request. And for each one of those, we'll only get 1 string. For each one trigger, we'll only get 1 string.